Okay, so I think it is about that time we start in earnest. We've given people long enough, and I'm sure they'll keep drip feeding in, and I can leave it in the trusty hands of George and Gav to sort those out to include them. So, little task when you started and you've had a busy day, your brains are probably frazzled as it is. But that aside, here's a little spot the difference. If anyone got 10, pop it in the chat. I can't see the chat, but I'm sure George and Gav can. Does anyone get 10, or have we got any high numbers in there, guys?
We've got 8.
9.
Oh, we've got 1 9. A couple of 9s coming through now.
Oh, well, I'll reveal the answers just now. And if those who were so close yet so far, you can see which ones you missed off. So here's your answers on the right-hand side to complement George's circling there. So there's the 10. Hopefully you can see all 10 and spot the one that you did miss off. But that's a pretty good effort if you got up in the 8s and 9s. Hopefully keeping you ticking over to start our meeting. And actually the first meeting of this year, this new academic year, our autumn term PE League Network meeting, and the first that I've had the pleasure of hosting, having attended, been part of in the past, whether it's been Gav, whether it's been Faye, whether it's been George. So it's a real pleasure to be here, and a big welcome to you all who've made the time and found the time to join us. And hopefully you can do so throughout the year when we continue to host these as well. Before we move any further, there's going to be a poll launched into the chat, if you wouldn't mind answering this, just to gauge the mood of what we all feel at the moment within school. What's the general mood in schools personally, or with the pupils, or in the school as a whole? And when you've answered that, if you could then also write in the chat box, what has been your highlight of the school year so far since September? What's been one standout moment for you that you've really enjoyed since September? So if you could do those two things, that would be amazing, and just get this general feel for what the mood is in the room this evening.
So I think if you click on the actual poll, there should be an option to choose which number kind of reflects where your mood is. So hopefully you can all see that. Ryan, you might need to stop sharing the screen. I don't know.
All right, okay. So it's a stop share job, is it? Let's do that then. Does that help? So hopefully we can gauge. I can see it on my screen. So hopefully everybody else can get involved.
Right, it's on my screen, but it won't let you submit. It says it's... Well, do you know where it should be like lit up to click? It's ghosted out.
It's not lit up, George. What's going on?
Yeah. Same for me, that one.
Out where it says submit, so you can't submit it.
Oh, there we go. Technologies. All it gives me the option now is to end the poll, which I don't. Let me see if I can restart.
Well, based on it not being able to choose, even if I was a 10, it'd have to go down to a 9, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Dear.
I've tried again. If that doesn't work, or someone's answered that right,
here we go.
Out. You're all submitting now.
Here we go. Now I can see what's going on. And then also, whilst you've submitted that, if you can pop in the chat any things, as I said, any highlights of the year so far since September and coming back. What's been your standout moment? Maybe a moment of success personally, or something that's gone on in your school setting. So let's have a look. Well, we've got 7 seems to be a popular answer. We've got a 9. That's fantastic, by the way, for the mood in school. A 9, slightly higher than I was maybe anticipating. Couple of lower ones in there as well. Just out of interest, while you're putting your answers in the chat box, and I'll ask Gav or George to feedback on a couple of those in a minute. Who put the 9? I'd be interested to know what's going on in your school where the mood's a 9. What's the feel-good factor?
Ryan, I think you've got Kelly in the chat who said about the 9. Is it 0 COVID? Only 1 COVID case and Ofsted out the way, and that's the reason for the 9.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's always positive, isn't it? Ofsted out of the way, nothing too pressing to worry about. And yeah, in terms of the COVID as well, I know that has been and continues to be a huge stress point for so many schools, and certainly has been in many cases, including my own children's school. So that's really positive and good to hear. How about anybody who put one of the 8s? The 8s is a really good score. I'm keen to know what else has been going on and what's happened as well. So if anyone's willing to either unmute and be brave, take a risk, or if you'd rather put it in the chat, why you've put an 8 down for your score.
Just whilst you're waiting for that, Ryan, we've got a lot of comments around like returning to a little bit of normality, competitive sport, There's a bit of feedback in there, probably around the scores as well, around not enough time. Which maybe if they're scoring lower, COVID obviously restrictions. Being active at the break time comes out as a bit of a highlight as well. There's a real mixture of stuff in there.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. Yeah, and that was it, wasn't it? I think after the summer, we all had that mindset of this is going to be some form of normality. We are going to be returning to normality and hopefully crack on as normal. And there's been some roller coasters, ups and downs, changes and bits and pieces going on, but we've all sort of rode that wave the best that we can and still maintain that normality as best we can to this point as well. So that's really good to hear. Was there any feedback on whoever put one of the 8s, or was that the general gist of that, Gav? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
That happened. So yeah, it was just general comments coming through. Playing games outside before half term was a highlight. Getting back into classrooms, watching some great PE taking place. Yeah, a lot of just returning to a little bit of normality. Bringing all 3 schools together for a PE enhancement day. Brilliant. Yeah, kind of a lot of it seems to be being able to mix type stuff. Whether it be in intra or inter.
Yeah, all the good stuff that we enjoy, and that's pleasing to hear. I'm glad that's been the case, and you've all done remarkably well to this point. There's only a week and a half or so left now, so hopefully this evening can prove to be of benefit to you as we get together for this PE Lead Network meet online again. Hopefully for many it makes it more accessible and so forth. And we've put together an agenda of items that we've decided would be useful to share, some based on the back of the last PE Lead Network meet, which was back in the summer term, which seemed like a long time ago now. So this is the order of play, the running order for this evening. If at any point you've got any questions, anything you'd want to ask, if you pop that in the chat, feel free to do so. It will be monitored by Gav, as I've just said, and he can flag that up to me. And if that means we go down a bit of a side tangent, have a little discussion and unmute and so forth, that is absolutely fine. So please use the chat function for that so Gav can interrupt me and tell me to shut up when I'm rambling on. So the agenda this evening, we'll kick off in a moment with a few updates from ourselves at North Yorkshire Sport. Key updates from myself. Gav's got a few bits and pieces, and so has George. We're then going to be looking at the importance of early years provision, which I will start off before I introduce guest speaker Niall O'Brien to share some of his practice and work that he does in his school setting. And that was mainly born out of the summer PE League Network meet where Faye briefly finished and touched upon the importance of early years. And I thought that would be a useful point to sort of pick up in more depth in this meeting as well. I'll then briefly take you through PE deep dives and things to consider based on recent meetings I've been part of, including head teacher meetings and other small clusters, and share with you some thoughts around that, and it might generate some useful discussion to share ideas and question. As we heard from earlier, we've got Colin on the line as well, who's then going to take a bit of time to share with us about PE challenges and ways we can consider getting our children more active at home with PE-based type homework. And then we'll finish off with sharing with you some CPD opportunities and resources that you can consider in your context and your setting with North Yorkshire Sport, and how you can continue working alongside us and myself here. Those who've not met me before, just very quickly, I'm Ryan Ellis, the Education Manager at North Yorkshire Sport now. Some of you have already met me before in previous guises. I can see some familiar faces and names, and if you haven't, hopefully you will be seeing and hearing a little bit more from me going forward in the future as well. Okay, so starting off with then, I wanted just to touch upon the brief updates, which were over a month or so ago now in terms of the PE and school sports premium and where we stand with that. Thankfully, there was no reinventing of the wheel in terms of where we stand, as it has been for the past year or so. Any underspend from the previous year needs to be spent by 31st of July next year, when your report needs to ideally be published on the website. Indicators are the same. Often we get asked a little bit about swimming, and that's part of core curriculum, should be provided in the first instance anyway, but the PE premium is an excellent way to top up, particularly with the years potentially missed due to the COVID pandemic. So to spend that wisely on top-up lessons, I think is a fantastic way to spend that. And going back to the reports being published, the DFE are going to this year monitor samples of online reporting, sort of a lottery and a potluck to make sure that schools are spending the money correctly, checking up on what they've spent it on and getting in touch. I couldn't tell you exactly how that's going to look, but there will be some accountability there. So it's important that you have all of your bits and pieces lined up and in order in case you are one of those lucky chosen few schools who may get asked. Next update I wanted to share with you was based on the back of Hannah Miller's Ofsted webinar that she hosted. I think it was at the back end of October now, although I might be mistaken with that. And I thought it was quite a fascinating watch, and some of you may well have tuned in, so forgive me for reiterating a few bits and pieces that have perhaps come out of that. But one thing which stood out for me in terms of around the PE curriculum was how she spoke about competence being the key enabler across the 4 aims of the national curriculum. The 4 aims of the national curriculum that I shared, of course, in terms of being competent, but then actually children being physically active for sustained periods is another aim of the national curriculum. And if you are competent at something, it's more likely going to lead to success at that thing that you're taking part in. And if you're successful, you're more likely to take part in things for sustained periods. It's like a cycle which continues going around. Second to that, we've also got engaging in competitive sports and activities as a key aim of the PE national curriculum. And if you're competent at something, it means competition is more accessible for you. So again, talking about the importance of being competent. And finally, an aim of the national curriculum being lead healthy, active lives. And if you have competence, it makes decisions about healthy, active lives more informed. So when it comes to curriculum then, I think it's all about prioritizing according to your context. And she spoke about teaching fewer activities or indeed sports, if that's how you choose to pitch your curriculum, but in more depth to achieve more competence in certain areas, rather than looking at the national curriculum and thinking, I have to do every single thing here. It's about doing certain things well. And in particular, I love the analogy she shared, which I've since used and talk about in terms of the Jenga tower and how these blocks that we're building of fundamental skills all stack up so we can have compound skills higher up. But if there are any misconceptions, any of those blocks are missing or misplaced, it doesn't matter what comes after, it's all going to fall back down and crumble. And I thought that was a really nice takeaway to sort of pass on when we had this meeting today, in terms of when we think about our curriculum moving forward, which schemes and units you teach and maybe buy into, and are you making sure that you are trying to not teach every single thing? Because ultimately, whatever scheme that you have and have bought into should be used as a guide rather than a script, and help inform your decisions of how you can deliver PE in your context, because whatever you've got wasn't written for your school, for your pupils, for your environment, or the equipment that you indeed have available. Next update from me about the Active Lives Children and Young People survey may or may not be relevant to some of you on the call, but if you are one of the schools from term 1, the deadline is the 17th of December if you have been contacted, which is just over a week away. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that if indeed you are one of those schools. This is a survey which gathers data nationally on how children and young people engage with sport and physical activity, age 5 to 16 years old. And each term, different schools are contacted. If you are part of this survey, you receive a Healthy Schools rating, a bespoke report for your school, which I think is a very useful thing to have in terms of making informed decisions about what you do next and what incentives and initiatives you put in place. And even better than that, you get £100 school equipment credits to spend as well. So schools are sampled termly for this. So your school might well be contacted in the new year if it hasn't already been. But if it's something that you'd like to find out a little bit more about or know a little bit more about, I've popped an email on the screen there for you. One of my colleagues, Danny at northyorkshiresport.co.uk, if you drop him an email and you'd be keen to learn a little bit more, please feel free to do so. He'd be more than happy to hear from you. Next update and agenda before I move on slides here is going to be something I will ask Gav to jump in on. And it was just a little bit around about the recent controversy, Yorkshire Cricket Club and the sort of scandal going on there in terms of the racism. And we had a good chat, didn't we, in the office yesterday about this, Gav, and felt it'd be something that you'd be keen to raise and maybe mention a few points about.
Yeah, cheers, Ryan. obviously what's gone on, it's not great. It doesn't make Yorkshire look great. As us as an organisation and the other active partnerships in Yorkshire, our CEO sent out a statement around what had happened and obviously condemning it. But we felt that actually we need to take it to the next level now, and just putting out that statement isn't enough for us. We want to really challenge racism, anti-racism, and make sure that it's on the agenda, and almost every contact counts for us. So we had the discussion around where and what opportunities are there to potentially do this. And obviously with this coming up tonight, we thought, well, actually, yeah, let's put out it there as part of the conversation to see if schools have done anything differently or what they currently do around racism. Is there an opportunity for sport and physical activity to kind of drive some of the messages that we want to give out? And I'll give some examples. I was speaking to one establishment about 3 weeks ago, and they've started doing as part of their PE, they take a knee, and then it opens up those conversations. Another school is kind of away from sport. I've set it as a bit of a homework topic where the children and young people can do an art project about what it means to them, or they could do it as part of an English project where they write something. A real opportunity for them to get messages across. And I was wondering if there's anything that schools have done here or what they do, regardless of what's gone on at Yorkshire Cricket, that we might be able to share with this network, us to take into other meetings and schools to give us examples. And it might be nothing, but if anything, hopefully this conversation here has maybe put it on your radar and see if there is something that you could potentially do or build into your curriculums and stuff like that, just so that we're really kind of trying to fight it, drive down kind of what we've heard and what we've done, and really trying to change messages that people may or may not be hearing. So if anybody does want to unmute and give an example if they've done anything, please do so. If you prefer to put it in the chat, that's absolutely fine as well. There's no pressure as always in here. It's just a real opportunity for us to kind of start using sport and physical activity to tackle wider issues, bigger context than just sport and physical education. So yeah, it was brief and sweet, hopefully from me, but hopefully dropping things on radars that you may be able to consider or share with us that you've done in your schools. I've got YCFC did a workshop about racism in the school last week. Is that from Sophie? So we'll get in touch with York City and see if that's a blanket offer as well, and they might be able to come online and do something for us. Cheers, Sophie. And that was from the World Cup issues, I believe. She just put that. So from the Euros, from the England play and stuff. So this is the sort of stuff that we might. Well, I certainly didn't know about. I don't know if Ryan, you knew that York City were doing bits and stuff, and it's just ways in which we can support wider things in physical education, I guess, and our PE and school sport offers.
Yeah, no, 100%, and really important point to raise with everything that's going on in the world and has been. And that was nice to hear. I didn't know about that with York City, so it just begs the question: we can miss things; they can slip under the radar if we don't know everything that's going on, of what else is going on out there. And if any of you do know of any, feel free to share, throw those ideas around to help us with networking and sharing of best practice. So thanks, Sophie, for popping that in the chat there. I appreciate it. And there might be schools who are local enough to there who can maybe tap into and access doing something similar.
We might be able to bring them to the next network meeting or put on a bespoke, conversation with type thing. There's plenty we can do, so knowing about it really helps. So yeah, thanks, Phil.
Perfect. Well, cheers for that, everybody, and thanks, Gav, for that input. And last to hear from the team at North Yorkshire Sport, George is on the call as well with a few bits and pieces and updates for all of you before we get stuck into some of our learning topics, if you like, for this meeting. Over to you, George.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and evening, everyone. The couple of bits I was just going to update on are a bit more kind of national landscape, political. I'll try and refrain from too much political commentary because I could take up a while on the goings on down at number 10 these days. But in terms of what's happened over the past few months in relation to government policy particularly around school sport, there isn't a whole load of stuff. Other than to say we are expecting a sequel to the School Sport Action Plan. But I think I was young enough to not be able to grow a beard when we were first expecting a sequel to the School Sport Action Plan. It seems to have been a while coming, and So we're still awaiting that. The government kind of budget spending review happened a couple of months back, and we had a glimmer around some announcements around maybe what's happening with the premium, so we don't have to get to July, August every year and wonder if it's going to happen for another year or not. And equally with the school games, but nothing has yet come. And I think that probably will be wrapped up in an announcement around the school sport action plan, rather than it wasn't announced in the budget. Clearly, there's a call for the longer term security of both of those funding streams. So as and when we hear, it'll be publicised widely anyway, but we will share with people around what happens with that. The couple of bits that were announced that had some kind of links to school sport were there seems to be, and we've had nothing confirmed yet, but a continued government interest in the use of school facilities for community usage, probably a little bit more geared at secondary schools than primaries, but certainly some primaries are already existing community assets. Sorry, my daughter has chosen this moment to walk in. So that's the opening school facilities that we're expecting some continued interest around that. And then the last one is just to flag the Holiday Activities Fund, which thanks to Marcus Rashford, there was provision around school holidays and Christmas holidays. I'm going to post links to what the current offer is in both North Yorkshire and York, but that also was an announcement of for the next 3 years, they're going to continue with that. So there will be more to come from that. And we want to work closer with schools around what that provision is for children on free school meals. So that will be my bit cut short, especially because of my daughter arriving back home. And I'll post those links now.
Smashing, George. Impeccable timing. Rather enjoyable. I appreciate that and sharing those with us. As I've said at the start of this, if there's anything you need to just pop in the chat and we'll see if George and Gav can pick those up. Links getting posted throughout as well, hopefully. But that sort of ties up nicely the bulk of the updates from the MYS team as we sort of move through our meeting. And I want to move on to early years provision as something which is close to my heart, that I'm passionate about, that I really enjoy. And when I saw that it was something mentioned by Faye on the back of the last PE Lead Network meeting and briefly touched upon it, something I wanted to go in more depth with and sort of explore why physical development and the opportunities are so important and how it can set children up for the rest of school and the rest of their life. So I'm going to do a bit of an exploration into the whys first and foremost and share a few bits and pieces before introducing Niall to you, who can then take over the baton from me and myself. And I always start with why in terms of the fundamental building blocks in terms of how our bodies develop. And essentially our bodies develop in two ways: proximo-distally from the center outwards and cephalocaudal development being from the head down. Proximo-distal development often referred to as the snowflake effect. So what that essentially means is our bodies are developing from the trunk first, outwards, shoulders, down to our elbows and wrists, and it's our fine motor skills, our fingers, fingertips, which are the last to develop. Yet seemingly we've caught ourselves in this educational landscape at times where we almost celebrate pushing children into the academic things quite soon, things such as handwriting, for example. And I'll share with you a story of my own daughter, Penelope, who when she was at nursery before at school in the EYFS, on one of the parents' evenings, there was basically celebrating to me saying, "Oh, Mr. Ellis, Penelope started writing and she's forming letters and so forth." And I think she was maybe 3 years old at the time, which is all very well and good. But I still beg that question is, was she actually ready? And thankfully, Penelope at this moment in time, she's now 5. She seems to enjoy writing and creating things and mark making and so forth. But for many children who simply maybe aren't developmentally ready, forced into that path, it makes me wonder if they're put off at such a young age because they struggle. And they may well struggle at such a young age if their bodies haven't developed fully in order to grasp handwriting. And I'm sure you can think of boys and or girls in your school setting who maybe seemingly just dislike handwriting. And maybe it's because they've tried and failed at a young age and decided it's not for them and they don't like it. And it makes me wonder, actually, is that just due to the fact at the time of being exposed to it, they weren't quite ready? And we need to be developing more physically and sooner. I think the example I often share is in France, children don't start handwriting till the age of 6 or 7. And when they start, they usually go straight into cursive. They're given that extra opportunity for their bodies to develop fully and presented with more movement opportunities in which to do so. And that sort of leads me to this picture you've probably seen shared a million times over social media, but every time I look at it, it just reaffirms these thoughts. There on the left-hand side there, we've got the hand of an EYFS aged pupil. And on the right-hand side there, the x-ray of a hand of a 7-year-old. So it isn't many years difference, but you can see a significant difference in the development of the hand, especially where a lot of these fine motor skills are going to be occurring and happening. And then to move this on even further, and perhaps for me at this moment, I'll explore now why it's even more important in the current climate. So movement is an essential part and piece of the jigsaw for developing our vestibular system and our proprioception. So the vestibular system, is our sense of balance. It's governed by our inner ear. It's how we balance. It's our relationship with gravity. Our proprioception is our sense of self in the space around us. So understanding where our body fits in the space around us. We use that every single day. So I use it when I'm carrying loads of washing down my steps. I can't see the steps below my feet because I'm holding the washing, but I still, touch wood for the most part, make my way down the steps. If you reach around your body to pull car keys from your back pocket, it's your proprioception sensing where your pocket is. A game I often like to try and play, you could try this now, whether your camera's on or off, feel free, but you can pop your thumb above your head. You can put the index finger of your other hand outstretched above it and see if you can move your index finger down and touch your thumb. And you can swap hands and try without looking in the camera and trying that. But that's your sense of space and awareness of where you are. And children with proprioceptive problems can often appear clumsy and they may fatigue easily, or they may appear inattentive because they're working so hard to concentrate to determine the position of their bodies. You'll have seen that child in EYFS and Key Stage 1 and beyond who will try and come and sit down on the carpet and try and sit in a space that seemingly doesn't exist. And they'll be virtually sitting on somebody else's lap or somebody else's feet. The reason I'm telling you this and the importance again is because both of these are developed through opportunities to move, developing physically. That's opportunities to walk, run, jump, skip, push, pull, turn, roll, twist, you name it. And it's all of those movement opportunities that trigger the development of these systems. And I said this, why this is one of the most important things for me is that this quote here really resonates. And it's due to the fact that the vestibular system is tightly linked to emotional development in children as well. So the limbic system, which is part of our brain, which generates emotionally based behavior, depends on the vestibular system to modulate the input from the senses. So by very nature, we're terranauts bound to gravity, try and master gravity. If we are not mastering gravity and our balance isn't quite right, we can feel more like an astronaut floating aimlessly through space. And that can impact on us in the same way emotionally as well. We can feel disconnected. We know that when children are upset, maybe stressed out, emotional, a good way to calm a child is often by bouncing them up and down or rocking them, which by its very nature taps into the vestibular system as well. So thinking on the back of the pandemic, and we talk a lot about emotional and social well-being and the emotions and how our children are feeling, a good way to help stabilize that as well is through opportunities to move, is through opportunities to be developing the vestibular system because of that direct link with the emotional behavior that they have as well as they develop their gravitational security. Now, the best thing, of course, about the EYFS is the fact that physical development in the early years is one of 3 prime areas. 3 prime areas. We've got physical development, communicational language, and personal and social emotional development. Not that we're ranking them, but technically at this point, it's kind of above and even more important than literacy and numeracy, which is one of the specific areas, but those areas through which the prime areas should try and be included as well. So we know physical development is so important. It states so in the framework. And it amazes me that sometimes it isn't an area that perhaps maybe as PE leads I neglected in the past and didn't really give it the due attention it deserves in terms of seeing what's going on and making sure children are not only developing physically in the free flow nature of what the classroom looks like, but are they given opportunities to have standalone physical development sessions too? So what does that look like? Well, physical development, we've got our early learning goals in that particular area, as well as other areas too. We've got gross motor skills. We've got fine motor skills as well. And it's at this point, without sort of spoiling any more, that I wanted to pass over in just a moment to Niall, who is on the call, as he's able to share with us the way in which in his school setting, he puts standalone physical development sessions, which can tap into all this amazing learning and what it looks like. And whether you've seen some of his bits and pieces before, whether you're new to meeting Niall and seeing what he does, I'm hoping there's bits and pieces you can pinch from him, maybe adapt for your context and what it looks like, and make sure that physical development, which is almost an early exposure to what a PE lesson will look like. Because actually, sometimes we forget our pupils at school, if they've never attended classes outside of the school setting, the only opportunity that they're exposed to that is within our schools. So getting them exposed early to what that looks like and feels like to be in a PE kind of setting, these physical development sessions can be ideal for that. It's at this point now, I'm just going to double check that Niall is indeed here and can hear me. If you are, Niall, give me a bit of a thumbs up and a nod or a hello.
He's here, Ryan. We just need to make sure we can hear him.
Cool. Well, I'm in charge of Niall's slides. I can see now. There he is. I can see him, but I can't hear him just yet. We're having audio issues. We love the technicalities of Zoom. It's brilliant. Always keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, try and go through your phone then, Niall, if it's not working, because we can't hear you, pal.
In the meantime, while we work hard in the background getting Niall on, if you've got any thoughts at this point from what I've just said, I have a tendency to rattle on about things that I'm passionate about. Any thoughts in terms of early years? Again, as I said at the start, please feel free to populate the chat with thoughts or questions. And if it's something that's raised, I'll be happy to speak about or touch upon with regards to your setting. But hopefully that's teed up Niall nicely in terms of why it is so important.
Can I just check? Can anyone hear me?
Oh, here we go. Here he is.
Yeah.
Here he is. Here he is. Niall has joined us and he's got audio. Isn't this a treat? So just because we like to make things difficult for ourselves as well, I'm sharing Niall's slides. So Niall's going to give me a nod or a, yep, next slide, please. It's very official when he wants me to move on, but he's here and I'll pass over to Niall now and shut up.
Super. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I was a little bit late to the meeting. Reality struck. Some children were late being collected from after school club in the dark. So always exciting after school. But yeah, so like Ryan's introduced me already, I'm Niall O'Brien. I work at the Academy at St. James in Bradford. I've been here just short of 2 years now, an exciting and interesting 2 years. And I feel really fortunate to be able to share some of our experiences and some of our provision in relation to our early years physical development sessions. Do you want to skip it on for me, Ryan, please? So how physical development looks within our early years setting. And I have to stipulate here that this is very much in addition to the incredible work that's already ongoing in our unit. I know that the teachers are forever taking their learning beyond the classroom and it's outdoors. This is just something that I wanted to sort of bolster our provision to prepare our children for when they arrive in Key Stage 1. So our main aim is to provide positive early experiences surrounding physical activity and movement. The hope is that we create an exciting and well-resourced, carefully considered learning activity or activities every time our pupils come to our sessions. And again, upon entering the hall, we want them to come in and really experience that a real sense of awe and wonder. So as they come into the hall, you know, it might look untidy to the untrained eye, but, you know, we want children to be enthused and excited on arrival for their lesson. Next one, please, Ryan. So in terms of how we set up our sessions, forgive me if you guys already already know this, but I'll go through it anyway. It's all based around fundamental movement skills, as research shows that children it's incredibly vital to children in terms of their commitment and their habits of continuing to have an active lifestyle throughout each key stage into their teenage years and adulthood also. They're very much the building blocks to ensure children are competent movers, and the fundamental movement skills provide children with the necessary skills to access other physical activities and sporting activities. Fundamental movement skills can be categorized into this sort of 3 subheadings I've got on that slide there. So we've got locomotor skills, stability, both dynamic and static, and object control skills. Next one, please. Yeah. So in terms of sort of explaining what locomotion looks like, it's I feel like it's quite a technical term for skills that are not so technical, but skills that are absolutely crucial. So things such as walking, running, bounding, hopping, skipping, jogging, skating, swinging, crawling, dodging, all the movements that we probably take for granted that our children can achieve in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. But if they've not sort of mastered these skills by the time they're 7 years old, the research tells us they're not going to be as competent as they might be. And then stability. So we look at stretching, extending, landing, stopping, twisting, turning, rotating, hanging, swinging and squatting. So lots of different movements that support children, particularly in and around core stability. And often people ask questions about the wall bars in the hall and how do you use them. And I think you've got to keep it simple. They're there to hang from, to climb, to stretch, you know, to get into different shapes and positions so children have the opportunity to brace and hold themselves to develop that core stability. And then object control, a bit of a fan's favourite, I'd say, amongst the children. So anything where you get to strike, send, throw, kick, roll, you know, it can be receiving, tracking a ball and stopping it, travelling with your feet or hands, or even using an implement such as a stick, bouncing and collecting items. So I've pinched this slide, that's why it's a little bit blurry, from a recent Ofsted PE-related piece that some of you may have seen. But it's interesting because, you know, I've mentioned previously that if children are not accessing fundamental movement skills regularly and experiencing them, then, you know, the skills that they require within Key Stage 1 are very difficult to achieve. So within the kind of the little flow chart on this particular slide, it shows you how crucial each of these 3 areas are to your more recognised sporting and physical activities. I'm going to skip on to the next one, Ryan, please. So as Ryan sort of really, he put it very carefully that, you know, it's important that physical development is only one aspect of the early years framework, but, you know, as physical educators, as people that are responsible for our subject, it does tend to sort of take priority. But what I like about the framework is that, you know, PSHE, communication and language, for me, there's no better subject, physical development and physical education, to develop those other 2 strands. You know, it's fantastic for me to work with our early years practitioners, our teaching staff, and everybody coming into our hall for our physical development sessions. And that's where I kind of learn from our teaching staff, because the way they pose questions, the way they sort of unpick children's social and emotional situation through the guise of physical development is really important. And I think that's why our physical development sessions have quite quickly become some of my favourite lessons to teach within our setting. So in terms of our lesson themes, like I've mentioned, we look at stability, locomotion and object control. We have 3 areas within our session that will specifically focus on this particular sub-theme, and children are sort of guided into areas and they will move through all 3 areas, particularly with our reception children. Interestingly, this year I've been giving our nursery pupils as well as our 2-year-olds. So, you know, it's been quite interesting thinking on my feet of how I can sort of, I guess, roll out this model for our very youngest children as well. But my aim is to make sure that children get to move with confidence, they get to negotiate space, you know, and cooperate with their peers while they're taking part in these skill practices. So yeah, our lesson structure, for example, if we've got a class of 32, we haven't at the moment, unfortunately, we've got many children off, but I decided that we would sort of divide and conquer as such. to make the lessons better quality, we can work a lot closer with a smaller group. So instead of the children having a really lengthy session, they're generally around 35 to 40 minutes long, because we feel that this maximises the success that they get, and they're able to access a broad range of fundamental movement skills. Our reception age pupils, along with the 2-year-olds, they now have specific sessions. So I'll have our reception pupils, we kind of divide them in half. I'll have 15 or 16 children for 35 minutes, then the other half of the class. But what we've decided to do is combine nursery and our 2-year-olds. The session structure looks the same, but as you can imagine, it's not quite as controlled, but still, I'd say very beneficial, and it's supporting our very youngest children to, become more physically competent. So yeah, we have a carousel of activities, and as I've mentioned before, we have three different activities. I'm hoping some of my examples are going to come up on Ryan's screen in a moment.
Well, we'll
this
see.
Is,
let's have a look. We may have gone a bit far here, Niall, but I'll just try and go back.
No, I think this is...
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's right.
All right.
If you can play that video, it shouldn't be too long.
Let's give it a chance to load
yeah,
back up.
Yeah.
Here we go. Look at this. We're getting there.
That play icon, we should be.
Here we go. We're laughing.
So yeah, this, hopefully if it plays all right, this is an example of what one of our sort of physical development sessions would look like. How the lesson will be resourced as an example. And the next slide should show us the children accessing.
There we go.
So again, we might just need to give it a chance to warm up. If we just play the stability one at the moment, Ryan. So not massively technical. I've tried to use, got a bit of a type of a spider web type activity that encourages children to sort of track their movement and coordinate their actions, followed by some stepping stones. But to get that sort of gross motor development in their upper limbs, asking them to hold the noodle above their head like they were walking along a tightrope. So just finding different ways to differentiate that little session. You might ask them to walk through backwards, sideways. You might ask them to miss spots out or just use the stepping stones. I call them the spiky hedgehogs. Don't know if anybody's got those. Brilliant resource. And this is the object control area. So again, I think this is a really simple activity, but I don't know if you can see clearly, but children using different implements, different bats, paddles, rackets to strike, different weights, sizes of balls, different textures of balls in the direction of a target, and the children will do that and they'll just collect them. I'll ask them to use both the dominant and non-dominant arms, so they're crossing the body center line. Really good for coordination, and obviously any child likes striking an object. Next one, the locomotion area. I've chosen this young man here, Theo. One of our most high-profile children in the early years. But if I want to engage him, as soon as I get the scooter boards out, instead of asking him to run or walk or slide on the scooter boards, he's absolutely delighted to use those. And again, fantastic for core stability, but a very similar action in terms of coordinating opposite arm, opposite leg for, I'd say, crawling. But a great exercise, but develops coordination, stability. I know it's a locomotion activity, but that's what you'll find. Lots of the learning activities will cross over, but I try to make them as specific as possible so children are accessing those three areas as regularly as possible. Yep, next one, Ryan, please.
See if there we go.
So yeah, this is example links in terms of physical development. So creating games and providing opportunities to play indoors and outdoors. At the moment, the examples that I've shared with you are all indoors, but we have introduced sort of a loose parts play space in an unused space within school. I'd love to have shared that with you as well, but I was mindful of the slide length. And, we want to support children to develop their core strength, stability and balance, spatial awareness, coordination and agility. So these are all statements that you'll find in within the early years framework. And like I've previously mentioned, we want to develop gross motor skills. So it provides that foundation for healthy bodies and social emotional well-being, and not to miss out the fine motor control in terms of precision and hand-eye coordination. I know there's lots of discussion around developing fine motor skills to support literacy and writing, but hand on heart, it's never my priority. Obviously, I embed that within sessions, but you know, my main focus is to make sure that we've got some happy, healthy movers in our early years setting. So yeah, a few more examples here. We want to support children to manage their emotions, and it's really interesting to watch our very youngest pupils, you know, figuring out how to take turns and wait for their turn on the balance beams, for example. And it's wonderful to see, and hopefully you'll see it in some of the video content shortly, children experiencing their confidence increasing. So, you know, I try to set up and differentiate each learning activity so there's lots and lots of success. You know, I'm forever coining the phrase, you know, positive early experiences, and hopefully that's what we achieve within our sessions. So yeah, in terms of the communication language strand, a language-rich environment is crucial. And again, I've got to tip my hat to my colleagues, because that's where our teaching staff and our early years practitioners and support staff are really very skilled in terms of posing questions to our younger children. So again, I feel that the sessions are set up in a way where there's so much success, but also, you know, a good amount of challenge to be able to you know, question our children and get feedback even from that very, very early stage. And again, you know, not everybody's confident to model skills or model you know, learning activities, but the children absolutely adore it. You'll see again in a video shortly, we've got some of our teachers laying on their belly and we're playing a modified game of snooker with noodles and balls, and children absolutely adore it. And I think, you know, that is the best example. If you're modeling, you know, getting down on the floor, if you're, you know, balancing along a balance beam, or if you're manipulating a ball, dribbling with your feet, or with an object and implement, children, you know, are inspired by that. So we've got to do that as teachers and practitioners. So this is I think it's a fairly lengthy video, Ryan. Please don't feel obliged to play it all, but I've tried to put together it's about 5 minutes long, I think.
Tell you what I'll do is I'll play the first minute or two, just so we get a flavour for it, and I'll let the sound play with it as well.
Examples of what it might look like in action. So
yeah, cool. Do you want the sound playing over it, or would you like to commentate over it?
Do you know what? You're probably better off just let the music play, and it'll speak for itself, hopefully.
Cool. I'll give it a little pause there, but hopefully people get a big flavour of what's going on there, which is amazing. Oh.
Yeah, so just sort of for the end of the presentation, I popped a couple of bits on there that we sort of, I guess it justifies what, to me personally, what I'm doing. I'm really pleased with what we're offering and how it's developing. So just, a little statement here or two. The physical educated person, those who have learned to arrange their lives in such a way that physical activities they freely engage in make a distinctive contribution to their long-term flourishing. And I just felt, that really sort of encapsulates what it is that I'm trying to achieve. I want these children to, move into Key Stage 1 and move into Key Stage 2 as competent movers. It's never about who's the most, I guess, who's the most high-level sporting person, who can access, traditional sport. Yes, there's an aspect of that, but it's really important to me that we're providing opportunities that children, that create active children that enjoy movement. And in terms of the important people that we're kind of working on behalf of, I say the important people, the people that we've got to justify our work to. All pupils leave primary school physically literate with the knowledge, skills and motivation necessary to equip them for a healthy, active lifestyle and lifelong participation in physical activity and sport. And I do believe that what we're doing at our school in terms of physical education, in terms of physical activity in its more broader sense, it's right at the heart of what we're doing. And I'm very fortunate to have a supportive senior leadership team. So I've got to be grateful for that. And that's the last slide. We've managed to link with, lots of wonderful partners that are helping us develop our provision along the way. I should add North Yorkshire Sport to that, actually, shouldn't I?
You can do now if you wish, Niall. Don't you worry about it. But no, that was brilliant, and exactly what I was looking for in terms of a real flavour of what something can look like in action. And whilst you guys, if you wish, want to formulate some questions, you may pop in the chat, which then we can filter towards Niall or myself or whoever with regards to that. Just to reiterate how incredibly refreshing it is to see such a provision put in place, which, tying back to how I teed this up in a way, everything I've just seen there of how that is helping to develop the child, the whole child, as well as just the physical skills, but those building blocks physically, but also emotionally. So we talked about what they need to do to develop their vestibular system, their sense of proprioception, and how that was running, jumping, pushing, pulling, rocking, spinning, rolling. And we see all that in action there. And it screams creativity off the screen as I'm watching it, in terms of a piece of equipment isn't necessarily what you think it is at face value. So I love seeing the fact that the hall that Niall's working in is littered with pool noodles, with chairs. We use a chair, we can go under a chair, we can go around a chair, we can dangle skipping ropes from a chair to climb over, and taking it for something different that we might not normally think. So absolutely fantastic work going on. And if anything starts populating in the chat, I don't know if you can see bits and pieces, Gav or George, maybe questions for Niall perhaps?
There's one that's coming from Natalie. How would you be able to plan something like this into progression, maps, long-term planning required as a subject leader?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that we're discussing now. I mean, I think our priority has been looking at long-term planning, medium-term planning. We've looked at knowledge organisers in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. And it's something that I'm looking to develop, working alongside PE leaders within our trust. But I think I would go down the route of, I'd put together a medium-term plan, but I'd definitely have some sort of knowledge organiser, and I would link it directly to those 3 fundamental movement skill areas. And this is, again, why I like it, and it's a good question. I think that, the way I've been planning the sessions, I don't feel that it's really structured in the sense of we're building on skills week after week. At this stage for me, in the early years, it's providing opportunities to develop those aspects of physical development. So every week will be a focus on those 3 key areas. And that's the way that I'm operating at the moment. And I think when we get our early years leaders come in, our teachers, I think that they're seeing that there's, huge direct links to the early years framework. I think we used, is it Tapestry? I think we used Tapestry in terms of assessment and providing evidence. So it's very much something that's in the pipeline in terms of developing that. Is it, who asked the question? Who was it? Natalie.
Yeah.
When I start to, over the coming weeks, develop, a similar version to a knowledge organiser, I'd be absolutely delighted to share it, just to get some feedback, because I don't think anything really exists at this point. But for me, the most vital part is actually what's going on the ground.
Just to add to that, Niall, as well, really great point, is that at this stage, as well, as I mentioned earlier on in this call, competence, when we look at the national curriculum being the key there, and to develop competence in anything, you've got to be exposed to it with repetition and doing it again and again and again. So visiting those three main areas with maybe slight tweaks. And I think the progressions are coming, particularly from Niall's perspective as well, in the moment, in the session, when you see a child doing something, and then you naturally, with your toolkit of ideas of maybe differentiation, challenging them to do it a different way, maybe doing it slightly easier, slightly different. So Niall explained earlier how going through the spider's web, forward, sideways, backwards, most children might go through forwards, but then you're progressing some individuals on within the session as well, but revisiting to build competence of those skills.
A couple of others have come in as well, Niall. How many sessions a week? And they love the shorter time frame as well.
Yeah, so at this stage, I'll have one session a week with those children. But I mean, it's probably worth mentioning at this point, we have quite a broader offer. So we have identified children that access our outdoor learning provision or forest school provision. So some of our youngest children will access that, as well as dedicated physical development session. And then within their classroom setting, or obviously out in the outdoor space, a lot of their learning will take place within the outdoor provision as well. So as I say, it's very much a bolt-on at this stage. And if I'm really honest, I don't think there's another section within my timetable to fit 2 sessions in.
Next question: do you set up and then train the staff to deliver?
Yeah, well, I like this question, because originally when I came in 2 years ago, the plan was to work with every teaching member of staff. Obviously, with the pandemic, it didn't quite happen like that. But I think this has been a fantastic model that we can use further up school, because I set it up, and there's been occasions recently where, for whatever reason, I've not been able to stay for the full session, or I've been out. So I've set it up, but I'm seeing, and I think it's sort of naturally happening, the support staff and the teachers and nursery practitioners developing a real confidence for setting up themselves, or at least trying to replicate it to the same degree. And sometimes they come up with, probably even better ideas than myself, which is great. And I think that boils down to sort of developing that confidence and competence, because we know it's a big discussion at the moment, particularly around physical education.
Another one's come in, and due to the nature of North Yorkshire, we don't all have the luxury of your type of hall, Niall. So the question is, the scooter boards, I love them. If they're outside, do they need helmets? Would you recommend helmets?
Right. So I've got to be open and honest here. Our hall, it's tiny compared to my last school, but obviously you find ways of making it work. The scooter boards, no, you can't use them outside. They need to be indoors, just because I've tried it, but unless you've got like super smooth brand new tarmac, which I know most schools won't have, there are alternatives. I think we've got some 4-wheel scooters. We've got the balance bikes, which we use as well. The scooter boards, obviously, they're really exciting to use, but I mean, balance bikes are equally as exciting. So I would certainly invest in those if you haven't already.
And one, I guess, from me that might make a little bit of work for Ryan, if there's interest, and it's one to all the teachers on the call as well, if there's interest, could we buy like a day of your time to perhaps do a workshop around some of the ideas and activities that you do? I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of turn here for the staff that are on here, but if you're interested, kind of thumbs up if you've got your camera on. Yeah, there's a few thumbs up, or wave at us, or whatever it may be. Is that a possibility for us? And then Ryan could coordinate through some of our CPD work to get you in for a day somewhere in North Yorkshire where staff can come and hear and see some of your ideas. There's a lot of yeses coming through, so you can't say no now, Niall.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm fairly confident, and have to check the diary and check in with Mr. Tolson, our head teacher, but it's kind of, we're already sort of operating in that way, maybe not directly for what we're discussing today, but in terms of the Creating Active Schools work, I've invited schools across to look at our active enrichment on a Friday afternoon. I know that's probably something to discuss on another day, but it's the same type of model where it's very, very relaxed. We invite people in, but at the moment I'm working with a handful of schools across Bradford where I'll be going in to look at how they operate and if I can support them. So I'm confident that, you know, with enough notice, we could probably make that happen.
Yeah, we'll work around COVID restrictions and stuff, but yeah, something for you and Ryan maybe to pick up another time, and we'll get it out to everybody on this call.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds brilliant, Gav, and we'll certainly pick up that conversation and look ahead to spring or summer to have that notice and put something together if Niall's happy to, and it will be a pleasure. And then the North Yorkshire Sport badge can appear on his next set of slides, obviously, there as well. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on, Niall. As you've said, your timetable is stacked. You're juggling an awful lot, but I just know that there's incredible value in what you're providing, the offering that you're giving to your school, and to share that with everybody on the call this afternoon / this evening, to see firsthand from this little snippet, but then to sort of have the appetite for more. If there is that demand, I think there's certainly scope for that. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
No,
and
no
just before I leave, I've been kicked out of the hall, like most people probably at this time of the year. So one of our physical development session with nursery is outside tomorrow. So I'll get some footage for everybody, see if we can recreate something anywhere near. It probably won't be quite as exciting, but I'll see what I can do.
Swimming or scuba diving based on today's weather.
Thank you.
Cheers, Niall. Take care.
Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Okay, so while we digest what's just gone on and all of the bits and pieces and maybe notes from what's happened with Niall, I'm going to thrust us forward because I'm conscious of time being precious, and start to consider and think about deep dives. Now, I don't want this to be an enormously lengthy task, and forgive me if you're on this call and have been on any of the recent smaller network meets and things that I've been on. But I'm going to share with you on another screen a document which I compiled and created through networking with various other colleagues across the country, basically in the past sort of 24 months, who had experienced and been through deep dives, and some of the sorts of questions or points to consider that might help you in your setting. So as I'm sharing this with you, I don't want you to see this as a definitive list. There may be other things on here that have been missed off. This isn't the be all and end all, but it is a guide. And I feel that going through this selection of thoughts and considerations, if you did this in your school setting and answered them honestly, I think it would give you some good peace of mind as to where you're at as a school, where there might potentially be gaps and what you can consider and think about, so that if indeed there is a deep dive in the subject of PE in your setting, you've got a lot of your boxes ticked and you be comfortable in what you're saying to any inspectors who come in. So what I'll do is I'll share the document with you in just a moment, talk you through the various questions and how I've set it up, and we'll try and make this available to send out on the back of all of this as well, so you have access to it. And then perhaps we'll think about any questions off the back of what I'm about to share with you as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and share with you a different screen so you can see this, hopefully. So it's not there. Where is it? Bear with me 1 second. Where are we? Screen seems to have disappeared, so you have to apologize at this point while this is happening. Let's have a look. Now, it was all set up nicely, but true to form of what we've had so far this evening, of course it was going to do this when I wanted to share something with you. Okay. I think it's to do with the fact that I've started recording, Gav. So but now that I'm recording, it's not letting me do certain things. We'll make it work.
Is it on the shared drive?
It's it's open in a tab, but I just can't access the tab. So I'm currently re-accessing it. But I'll be here in just a moment. Here we go. Bear with me. And of course, as well, due to the fact we're on a call with lots of participants, it's just running ever so slightly slower than I would like, obviously. but we're almost there. Okay. I'm hopeful you can all hear me and my computer's not exploded whilst I try and do this. And we should be good to go. Apologies, everybody. Right, it's here we go. It's crawling into existence. Right, let me see if I can share this with you now. Okay, there we go. Let's share that. So hopefully you can see this screen here. And I don't know if you want to just, if you can't see a screen which says PE deep dive considerations, fire a message in the chat. If you can see this screen, you're seeing the correct thing, to which I'm incredibly pleased. So I've made this little document here to compile, and I'll try and send this out to you all on the back of this as well. And as I scroll through the document, I kind of split it up into questions or considerations. The ones with blue targets are around PE and the curriculum. The ones with red targets mainly centered around staff support, resourcing, and pupil voice. And the ones with green targets around physical activity and extracurricular considerations as well. So what I'll do is just take a moment to read you through some of these now to keep it as swift as possible. There might be certain ones that stand out in your mind, in your head, and come as a surprise, come as a shock. You weren't considering that. And then afterwards, when I've gone through it, we'll maybe open it up onto the chat to see if there are any thoughts or questions and bits and pieces around that. So start with page 1 here. And again, this is not a definitive list, but ones which you may want to consider. So does the subject lead or SLT know what outstanding PE looks like? Does the school have a PE policy? When was it updated? Does it reflect current practice? Does the school currently have an action plan in place, short or long-term vision for the subject? Up-to-date report on premium spend. Is it clear on impact? Is it sustainable? Is it on the website? Does the school have a curriculum map? How much coverage do you achieve? Does the school use any PE schemes? Are they effective? How do you know? How do you ensure that learning is progressive across school? Assessment, what are you doing? How is it used? Monitoring, how often do you observe staff teaching PE or scrutinise planning? Are there any gaps in your resources? Staff auditing, have their skills been recently audited for confidence and competency? How well do pupils follow the dress code? Is there one for staff? Has there been any CPD through subject leader or external companies? What message does your website send about PE at the school? Do you have a PE intent statement? How does the school meet the needs of all learners, SEND, disadvantaged, more stable, etc.? Is the school a member of any associations, school sports partnerships, youth sport trust, AFP? How does your PE curriculum link to school values? How is PE timetabled across your school and why is it done that way? Have there been any intervention groups for low ability or those who are obese or any other target areas? Does the school run any in-house competitions or events? Extracurricular provision, are all phases catered for? Is there an active playground that is well equipped? Variety of activities, playground leaders? What, if any, physical activity takes place to supplement the curriculum, e.g. Daily Mile? Is there any PE on display, celebratory, informative, inspirational, vocabulary on walls and so forth? Links with local clubs, what exit routes do your pupils have? What new activities have been introduced? External providers again, how is their work monitored? What qualifications do they have? How often does pupil voice take place? What do you use it for? Do parents know what is taught in PE? And do they know what progress their child is making? Do any governors have any understanding or involvement in PESPA? Is swimming monitored carefully with plans in place to ensure that all pupils meet national curriculum standards by the end of Key Stage 2? And that sort of summarises the deep dive oriented questions at the bottom of this document, and I won't go through this right now, but you'll see it when I send it, is kind of a PE learning walk type document with a couple of bits and pieces for you just to consider and think about PE specifically and make notes there as well. But there's a number of questions that have been spoken about or covered just there. If you want to formulate any thoughts, opinions, questions, please pop that in the chat box. And at this point, actually, because I've just seen that Andrew Bode, you are on here, Is there anything, because we spoke recently, didn't we, about this, that you would like to add at this point from experience, or to verify any questions or add anything which you've just seen there as well?
I think having a clear understanding of why your curriculum is designed for your school. So is it bespoke to your children or your students, or are you just delivering football because you're delivering football? So ensuring that you understand why your curriculum is being delivered as it is, and ensuring that staff understand it as well. Assessment's a key one. Just knowing, do staff know where children are and how they can get to that next stage in their learning? Knowing who are the least active in school and what is being put in place for that. So again, Ryan said stuff about interventions, just ensuring that there is learning going on. So monitoring external companies or providers as they come in, and using those PE audits. So you mentioned it before, Ryan, about staff audit, making sure that you are aware of those staff and where their confidence is in delivering PE, and maybe doing that half-termly or termly to ensure that you can show that progress. And then what I would also sort of advise is collating as much evidence as you go through the year. So for example, if you are doing CPD with staff, and if you get an external company in to do that, how are those staff making progress? How can you evidence that? Where is that going? And can you then show that and document it for Ofsted?
Cheers for that, Andrew. Yeah, really good points. And as I said, this was to be shared with you as a prompt, a thought prompt, something for you to reflect on, to consider. And it might just have been one or two questions or thoughts in there which make you go away and think that's something I could consider and start to play around with in my school setting, and thinking about that. I know Andrew mentioned the curriculum there. You're right. For many of us, it might be a case of we have a scheme and that's our fallback and our base. And I think that's good as a very minimum, for sure, having that as a minimum. But how actually can you take that to the next level and say, this is how we're tailoring it for our school setting? This is how we're using this particular scheme for our setting. Because as I go back to what I mentioned at the start of this whole call, whatever scheme you've chosen wasn't written necessarily for your school, your setting, your pupils, your teachers, and so forth there as well. Any questions that are coming in at all with regards to that, or maybe anybody who's on the call who's been through a deep dive, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us? But if you're spotting out there, Gav. No, Gav isn't it? Maybe even George, if George's there. If not, I'll have a little look and see if I can multitask.
What we've got coming through is, do you have any good examples of a bespoke PE curriculum to a particular school? And the other one was a great set of questions, agree about the least active pupils. We might not have said either, we'll be sharing this with everybody and the presentations and stuff like that. So you can all get a copy of this at some point.
Just to sort of pick up here, and I've just spotted one of these as well, about running discreetly. I think it might have been Rosa who's mentioned this here. And I suppose about how you go about it, but I'm just going to pick up on Niall because it was on earlier and it's fresh in my mind from what he was talking about. He did a great session, I don't know if he still does it, at his school, and he called it like Cook and Move or something. And here it was like an intervention session where I don't know if they'd spend an hour and a half, and they would take time to do a bit of healthy cooking and look at nutrition and making something simple for 30 minutes or so. And then for the other 30 minutes, they'd just do some physical activity, like a mini PE lesson, if you like, in a space. And that proved to be, from what I saw when he was running it, a relatively successful intervention.
Stephen Jeff said he'd recommend Beyond the Physical for a scheme of work as well.
Yeah, and the schemes such as theirs, or any scheme as well, you do your due diligence, you have a look at it. If you as the PE lead think we can get on board with that, share it with staff, gauge their opinions, and then use that as your base. That is your base for how you are going to approach delivering your curriculum, but then using that again to build from. How can that then be tailored to meet your school? Because it could be complete PE, it could be real PE, it could be PE hub, it could be PE passport, it could be Beyond the Physical. still, again, I keep reiterating this, none of them were written for you personally, as much as we wish they could be. So take the ideas, and over time, might take a number of years, start to build what you want your curriculum to look like for the setting that you've got.
A couple of others, Ryan, that I was thinking about is some of the Ofsted deep dives that we've supported schools with, they've actually been asked, how is PE supporting the wider school environment? So where is that cross-curricular sort of, so it's more based on physical activity as well. So how is that cross-curricular sort of physical activity level increasing? So are you seeing sort of engagement in physical learning, physical active learning, sorry, and then are you sort of seeing PE sort of valued across the whole school?
Yeah, one of the questions on here was around how does PE link to your wider school values? Because that's something when we're in the class, teaching it in front of a class, when I used to do this, we champion the school ethos, we champion the school values, we try and embed that as the culture across a school. Is that still apparent in your PE? Even if you're using a scheme of work, or are you completely just going off and using the scheme as it is? Or are you still embedding those school values and part of what your school culture is and offers?
Donna's mentioned complete PE, and it really supports the non-specialist. Questioning has improved as using key vocabulary.
Brilliant. And I think complete PE, you can definitely get a trial with them as well to try it out. I know that. I think I've spoken to Catherine.
I think a lot of them do give you a trial from my kind of understanding of them all. And I would recommend trialing them all. It might be a bit of a pain at times, but they are all slightly different and it's not one size fits all. So it's really finding what works for not only you as PE leads, everybody else that's going to be teaching PE for you as well. Because there has been cases where it gets bought in and then it sits on the shelf apart from the one person that's bought it in. So it's just making sure that they do that consultation and trial a few and look at all the different ones to see which one works for you and your students.
See if they can come and deliver some training, see if you can be given some leadership time to have time in a staff meeting and to do that as well. And you like to hear feedback from those who are using a particular scheme and resource, and they might rave review it and it might be brilliant, but it might be brilliant for them. You might not know their school. And this is why I sometimes try and offer the advice to avoid the scrum which happens on things like Facebook. It's so easy to go somewhere like that. And every other day they're asking about which scheme we should use. Then it becomes a bit of a pylon. Then it becomes a bit of a sales pitch. But you don't know any of these people or their contexts or their schools. So because they're raving about it, it still might not be best fit for you. So it's just about if you've got that opportunity and that time to do your research, see what best fits for you and then tailor it from that point onwards. But as I've mentioned, going through all of these questions here, we will send this out as well. So you can go through it in your own leisure, get your notepad and pen, make some little notes next to these questions and just hopefully have some peace of mind at where you stand.
At the risk of giving a bit more work to Ryan, if you are looking at schemes, you don't know what you don't know. Now, there is so many out there. If you are looking at some or that's the next thing for you, feel free to get in touch with Ryan or myself and we'll give you a list of everything that we know because there's new ones coming out all the time. But if you only hear about one because that's what your neighbouring school's got, then that's the one that you're probably more likely to go with. So yeah, if you haven't got that on your radar, something you're looking into, feel free to get in touch and we'll send you through all the ones that we know and then you can kind of do a bit of due diligence yourselves.
Perfect. Now, unless there's any more questions come popping up, I'll leave it at that. I didn't want to spend too long doing that. I wanted to just make it as a
Adam's put in that he's currently trialing the complete PE for EYFS. He's also looked at Get Set for PE, which I thought was good as well. Leaning towards complete PE because it links well with the YST resources and stuff that they're using.
Perfect. Yeah, that's another one, Get Set, which often gets mentioned, which another lovely resource. But again, just looking at what you can do for yourself and best for your setting. Now, at this point, moving on to somebody else who's going to join us to speak. If Colin's still there, I'm sure he's still wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go. And I wanted Colin to come on and chat with us just very briefly about PE challenges and just looking at another angle and aspect of introducing PE at home, chance to be physically active at home from a different lens, a different perspective as an option that's out there that you may or may not want to consider. But particularly as we're still in these uncertain times and it seems like things are changing every other day in terms of restrictions, it'll be just something nice to have on your radar. So are you still there, Colin?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, yes. So I don't know if at the minute you've got the option to share screen,
I have.
So you have? Well,
I shall put a couple of slides up in a sec. So, thank you, Ryan, for the chance to do this. Hello to all of you. I'm not offering you a scheme of work, or at least I don't think I am. I think I'm offering you something that might complement your current PE teaching or a scheme of work that you use. In fact, if I tried to liken what we do to something, I keep thinking that what you currently offer is the cake, and maybe we can be the icing on that cake for you. So, right, I shall try and share my screen and talk you through what we do. I'm one of the two founders of something called PE Challenges, which is essentially an online PE program that's designed to help children develop their sports skills at home. Can you see the screen, by the way? Is that sharing, that slide?
I can see that, yes. Hopefully everyone else can.
So there's two of us behind this. We've got an expert coach who was a primary school PE teacher and now runs his own soccer school and has taught lots of children and helped them develop their sports skills. And I have to admit, when I first got involved in this, it was because my son, who was 7 at the time and is now 17, went through Stuart Owen's sports school. And I was always very impressed by Stuart because he seemed to have got loads of kids into football academies, and there was me, obviously hoping my son would make that. But over time, I realized that actually he's helped lots of children in lots of different sports, whether it's long distance running or weightlifting. In fact, there's a chap who competes in one of the world's strongest man competitions at the moment who went through Stuart's coaching. And what I got more interested in over time was, what does this do for all the thousands of children who don't turn out into an elite sports person? And one of the things that struck me was their sports skills were better and they enjoyed sport more. And it seemed to me they were always going to be engaged in sport more than someone who didn't have good sports skills, which I think calls back to your point, Ryan, about Ofsted saying that competence is, it's an enabler, right? If you're competent, you enjoy it, you take part more. What we think is we've got a way to help all children build that competence. And the reason for doing it online and making it available to children at home is, of course, there's only so much time in the day in the school day to teach PE. And if you give children time to practice at home, well, that's a great thing, right? Especially if you help them see that by practicing, they're getting better. And actually, one of the questions that came up earlier was about what do you do for children who aren't so active or don't normally get involved. And we have found several of the schools we've worked with that they say quite often it is the less active children who really get into this, because there's no, they're not doing this stuff in front of their friends. It's not about being the best in the class. It's just about them having some fun and getting better. It's very child-centric. So let me see if I can make these slides move on. So it works on a normal computer or a mobile phone screen. So it's suitable for whatever they happen to have at home. And we found that really useful when it was lockdown, by the way, because we realized how many people didn't necessarily have a laptop available for their child, but the fact it works on a mobile phone screen is great. And essentially we offer 10 courses covering a range of sports, football, basketball, volleyball, cricket, rugby, tennis, badminton, athletics, throwing and catching. And just to show you what the courses look like, the idea is that each child has access to these courses. So there's 2 screenshots here. The top one shows you the basic layout. So there's a short video, generally about a minute long, of a child performing the challenge that's involved. So this one's called Off the Wall. It's the second of 25 challenges in the throwing and catching course. You can see where you are on the left-hand side of the screen. So there's a little video of a primary school child doing the challenge. And if you scroll down underneath the video, what you see is a quick description of what you've got to do, information on what equipment you might need. And of course, we recognize not everyone's got all the different bits of equipment. So we make lots of suggestions for what you can do if you don't have the right stuff at home. I mean, a ball's fairly simple, but if it was cricket or tennis or badminton, we suggest what you can use if you don't have the right racket or bat. We talk about how to make the challenge a little bit easier or harder, and we give some tips. So we normally give at least one basic skill tip for each thing. You know, the one here, it says aim to throw the ball quite high into the wall, as shown in the video, because that gets the ball to return to you at a comfortable height, because the child here is just throwing ball against a wall, and it's so she's either catching it straight away, or she lets it bounce and then catches it. And because we know that, you know, particularly in Britain, the weather isn't always great for going outside, we make suggestions for how you can do it inside as well. So that's a little description of how the course layout looks for each course. As I say, there's 10 courses in all. These are a couple of screenshots from the volleyball course. So first of all, I suppose skill development. So down the left-hand side, again, you can see the list. I know it might be hard to see, especially if you look on the mobile, but there's a list of all the challenges in this course. I think there's 20 in the volleyball course. And if I look at what we've circled here, we've got a red circle around this one, balloon dig. So one of the simple things we start with is a balloon and just practicing the dig action. But by the time you get to challenge 16 in the course, which is highlighted in red down here, you can see someone serving the ball, and here's one of the children, Rosie. She's digging the ball up and knocking it right up into this bin. And of course, the tips here are all around using your knees and your legs rather than just relying on your arm strength. But hopefully you can see that there is a degree of progression from the start of the course, starting with something very simple and balloons, through to actually quite a good and accurate shot. The other things in the courses, we've got personal best challenges. So I've circled those in yellow. Every 5th challenge is a personal best challenge. So there's one here, which is how many balloon touches can you do in a minute? And then we'd ask you how many you did on your first go and how many can you do at the end of the week? What's your best score? Or there's another one here, which was an underarm serve into a bin. And it'd be how many did you manage to do first time and how many at the end? And the idea of that, again, is that each child can see how they're getting better. It's not all about, are you the best in your class or the best in the school? It's how many did you manage at first and how many do you manage after a fair bit of practice? We've also got some questionnaires embedded in the courses. So we ask a few questions about, are the children enjoying the courses? What did they find most difficult? What did they do to make it easier? So it stimulates a bit of thought on their part. And actually it allows us to capture lots of interesting data. So we can turn all of that into data for each school of all sorts of types. So we've been running for about a year now, and over 1,000 pupils have answered those questionnaires that are embedded in the courses. And if we look at those pupils overall, we can give these stats for each school if they want the stats that way. But overall, 98% of the children said they enjoyed the challenges, and we think that's important because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. 97% said their skills have improved. And we think that's really important, actually, getting the child's view of have their skills improved, because we know that you will be assessing them as teachers. But actually, from a confidence perspective, the question is, do they think they're getting better? And 96% said they're more likely to get active in future, which we think is a useful data point as well. In fact, we capture lots of data, actually. One of the things we try and estimate is how much time the children have spent getting active at home. And hopefully that's all useful data when it comes to your PE premium surveys, etc. Pricing wise, I thought I'd better be up front and tell you what the pricing is. So you can just buy the challenges, which makes them available to you on a laptop or a mobile. We also provide a rewards pack, which includes a nice trophy, because most of the schools we work with like to give a trophy to the class that's got the most participation each week. We can do a benefit report for you. We can send reports across every week saying how many children in each class have taken part that week or since the start of using us. And we also provide scorecards which show the children's login, because if they want to log in, they need to know what their username and their password is, and that's printed out on the scorecard. Of course, you don't have to use those things. You could just tell them, you could write it on a piece of paper, etc. But the idea is that it's fun, it's child-centric, helps them develop their skills, helps them progress in the way that they do that. And at the moment, we always offer a free trial. So if you'd like to give it a try, you're really welcome to do so. Just let us know and we'll try and get your school set up. It's quite simple, and we don't need to know the children's names to make it work. Ryan, I hope I haven't rambled on too long. Trying to rush through that.
Not at all, Colin. No, that's absolutely fine. And like I said, those who are on the call, a 5-week free trial, nothing to lose. Give it a try, and again, see what fits for you. If it works, and if it doesn't, there's no guarantees. But it's to explore that option. What's the response like from pupils? Cost you nothing to maybe have a try. I'm just trying to bring you that opportunity and exposure, if you've not heard before, of PE challenges in terms of who they are and what they do, just to add to the other bits and pieces that are available out there. And as I alluded to before Colin jumped on here, in a time where we don't know what the landscape looks like a month or two down the line. And even if that means there's more PE at home and there's more learning to be done at home, it's that opportunity. But hopefully it's something that is sustainable and goes on beyond that as well. So I'll just have a quick check here, Colin, if there's any couple of questions and bits and pieces. I think Donna's said here, are the challenges aimed at different age groups?
So in general, I'd say the first 5 or so in each course are kind of EYFS. And then you kind of get to key stage 1, probably 5 to 10. And then they get to key stage 2 by the end. So there's a mix, and you can choose which lessons each child should do. We also suggest how to make them easier or harder as you go through, which you probably saw. So hopefully that means if some children are slightly ahead of where you might think they are, or not as good as you might think they are, that they can work out how to make it easier or harder for them.
So it sounds like that you said then it starts where the entry point would be your EYFS key stage 1 as it progressively gets harder, aimed at pupils, but then they can come in at whatever entry point they want, or as you see fit, whatever they would like to try, which is perfect. Super. No, I appreciate that, Colin. If any questions keep coming in, myself or Gavin will try and keep an eye on that with regards to that. But I appreciate you sharing that with us. And if anybody wants to give that a go for free as an option for over the Christmas period or into January, then do get in touch with Colin and let him know. Okay. Let's see if this is working for me now. Let's have a look. Nope, not the one. Okay, this is the one. This is where I want to be. Okay, so it almost brings us to a bit of a close for our session this evening and the topics that I wanted to cover. We've just spoken with Colin there, and I wanted to tie up and wrap up with a few bits and pieces from myself, and then I know I've talked for an awful lot this evening, but you have to get used to me rambling on. I'm happy to stay on for a bit longer if anybody wanted to hang about and speak to me personally afterwards, that's fine. But I did want to raise the attention of these opportunities and resources that at North Yorkshire Sport are still available to you to get involved with if you should choose to do so. I'll start at the very top here, and that is the level 4 supporting pupils' wellbeing through PE course. It launched at the start of 2021, really, from sports leaders. And we're just about at the close now of our first cohort of learners from North Yorkshire. We've actually got the final session 5 tomorrow. This is a course which is done completely online through 5 2-hour sessions, which I run and lead on. So you'll be working with me. And that's going to be running, no official dates confirmed yet, but starting early January, February 2022 and running through till the summer term there. So if that's something you're interested in and you've got the QTS and you want to look at ways that you can support pupils' well-being and embed that across school through PE, then do get in touch with that. Just to note, with all of these I'm about to summarize, when I send the follow-up email, there will be links so you can sign up. Or if you are chomping at the bit, if you go to North Yorkshire Sport website, you'll find the links there on the courses and events too. Second one there is a level 5-6 primary school specialism and subject leadership in PE and school sport. Often very popular, a very, very in-depth course in comparison to the level 4. And we are going to start a new cohort of learners in January. I believe the first session is Friday, January the 14th. And as of right now, face-to-face sessions. And again, with myself, I'll be tutoring on that alongside Dan Wilson. So we'll be sort of co-tutoring through some of the theory and the practical. If it's something you'd be interested in yourself or other members of school staff, it's something you'd like to upskill them with this qualification, then again, please do get in touch. There is still chance and space for you to jump on that. Third one down, inclusion in PE course. We are running 2 of these with Fran Nicol, one of the SGOs in our area, and she'll be running a course in Harrogate the 19th of January at the Bilton Health and Wellbeing Hub where we are based, and one in Scarborough at the Rugby Club in March. That's £25 for 4 hours roughly, and Fran will be talking about inclusion and catering for all in your PE lessons with a particular focus on SEND, as that is her area of specialism. So a really worthwhile 4 hours of your time to think about ways, tips, tricks that you can take back into your school setting and apply with your pupils. Fourth bullet point down, these have been running since September, once each half term. These are PESPA drop-in sessions with me that I've been hosting and advertising, and I will continue to do so on the social channels and through the emails that I send out in the newsletter. But these are essentially 15-minute drop-in sessions which give you a chance to jump on a call over Zoom or Teams with me, talk to me about your PESPA offering, any pain points you've got, what any issues are. We'll try and put some ideas and action plans in place for that, and then maybe even arrange some follow-up work afterwards. So it's just a personal one-to-one meeting with me for 15 minutes to talk all things PESPA in your setting. Then we've got the Yorkshire and Humber Learning Hub modules. If you haven't visited the website, please do so. It's free to create a login, and there's all kinds of learning modules on there, from outdoor learning, from EYFS PE, for you to just get involved in and sit and learn at your own pace, at your own time. And within that, which leads me to the next bullet point, is the transition toolkit as well. This was raised last academic year by Faye and Jodie, who works at North Yorkshire Sport, as something they created to help with that transition point from year 6 to year 7. And there was good uptake and good engagement up to the summer term. And I wanted to raise that awareness of it again now as being a resource that's available, which I will send links out to, because once we get past Christmas, it's often the time we start to consider and think about, even though it's all July, it creeps up on us quick, those opportunities for easing our pupils into that transition. And it follows a format of 8 sessions, including physical activity and sub-themes such as goal setting and resilience and so forth. So it'll be well worth your time to look at that. And then final point from me on here, which we started on Monday of this week, was the 12 Days of NYSMAS Challenge, which focuses on the 5 ways of well-being, which actually we speak a lot about on the Level 4 course, and how each day can you, your pupils, your staff members, challenge yourself to try one of these things to look after your well-being and support each other in exciting times of the festivities, but also what can be quite tough times of the year as well, and post your progress and share that and celebrate with everybody else. So each day you'll see on our socials so far, there's been posts suggesting what sorts of challenges you might undertake. And when I send the link out, you can sign up. I'll send you across the resource pack and you can get your printouts, which gives you suggestions of challenges. And it's something that your staff at school, your pupils, your parents might like to get involved with. It might even be a lovely one to send home over the Christmas period, so that you know you've got your families and your pupils engaging with something over that time while they're away from school as well. Unless I've missed anything there, Gav, which is salient and must need to be mentioned, if you can hear me and are still on, please do flag up and let me know.
I don't think so. I think the only thing I would add would be, obviously, these sessions and the education manager's role it almost needs to be met by your needs. So open up the conversations with Ryan as frequently as you can to help shape the work that he's doing, because ultimately he's doing it for you guys. So including in things like for these meetings, if you've got any agenda items, let Ryan know what you're wanting, what you're struggling with, what you want advice on, so that he can then formulate that so that it works for you. I think that's probably it. Matthew has said they're doing the Sport England survey, Active Lives, but he's done it with homework. Is there any way of checking? Yes, there's a short answer. Danny in our team, he gets this fancy spreadsheet that comes from the national team. If you remind me of your school, Matthew, if you just put it in the chat, I'll ask him to follow up with you, if that's okay. And I'll send him an email now.
To that end, as well as what Gav's just said in terms of the best way I can support you in this role as education manager, now doing this full time and trying to put things out there that are bespoke to your needs, I've just put in the chat here a type form, a little questionnaire to give me a bit of feedback about this PE Lead Network meet this evening. But there's your opportunity within that to share with me, which I'll be looking at areas of particular concern or focus. So then when we are hosting these meetings in future, whether it's online or in person, we can make it as tailored and bespoke with agenda items to address those needs. And as I've already said in the meantime as well, when the PESPA drop-in sessions are on, and if you want to have more personal sort of one-to-one conversation with me, sign up to those and we can chat and sit down and talk through things as well. So I've been very appreciative because we've almost taken our 2 hours. If you could take literally 2 minutes before you do hop off the call today to fill out the type form, which I've just put in the chat, the link there. It won't take you more than 2 minutes, but it will help you and it will help me moving forward with these sessions in this new role. If you still want to get in touch with me, again, there's a link to the feedback and type form, and you can see there my email address if you want to contact me directly on the back of anything that we've spoken about this evening. Just please email me. I'll be happy to hear from you, happy to support you and help you out the best that I can. Mentioned a number of times already, on the back of this, I will send out a summary email of the topics we've discussed tonight, access to a copy of the slides, and make sure you've got all of that to hand. Other than that, that's all I've got to add for this evening. We've got 10 minutes left on the clock. So once you've done the type form I've just sent through and you don't sneak off out the back door there, then you are free to go grab some tea, get a cup of tea or a glass of wine or whatever that may be. And again, thank you for joining me this evening. I really appreciate it. If you want to hang around as well, feel free. I'll be here for 5 more minutes. Cheers, everybody. Appreciate it. Smash in. Thank you. Cheers, Sean. Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks, Joe.